Welcome to the Dayton Branch NAACP monthly community meeting, where we inform, educate, and empower our citizens to make better daily decisions through education. And today's topic is going to be on zoning and housing solutions for a stronger Dayton. Zoning and housing solutions for a stronger Dayton. This will be moderated by our Housing Committee Chair, and her name is none other than Tracy Martin. And she's going to moderate this session. She has a great panel, and the topic of discussion is on you. So, all right, Ms. Tracy.
Pass the mic. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's NAACP Dayton Housing Committee presentation, Zoning and Housing Solutions for a Stronger Dayton. I'm Tracy Martin, your NAACP Chair, Housing Chair, and Greater Dayton Realtors President. It's an honor to have each of you here tonight, and we are going to talk about zoning across our region from Dayton to Trotwood and throughout Harrison Township. Zoning decisions have a direct impact on who gets to live where, who can build wealth, and how neighborhoods evolve. So when zoning works well, then we work well, and our home ownership grows. But when it doesn't, it can unintentionally create barriers that hold communities back. That's why tonight's conversation is so important. We're here to look at how we can make zoning more housing friendly, as Tony would say, and more equitable and more responsive to the needs of our residents and developers alike. So we're joined by an outstanding panel of professionals and leaders who bring unique perspectives and solutions. As I call your name and make a statement here, just stand. We have Pamela Alcantara, CEO of Mod Fab Incorporated, representing innovative modular and cargo texture designs that's reshaping how we think about affordability and speed in development. And then we have next Chad, Planning and Zoning Administrator of Harrison Township, who will share insights on regional coordination and planning. We also have Khalid and Dana Joshua of Integrity and Trust Builders, representing traditional builders and lending who understand firsthand how cost permitting and zoning can make or break a project. Then we have Tony Kroger, Planning Division Manager for the City of Dayton, leading the city's zoning reform process, a critical effort to modernize land use and improve housing access. Daniel D.J. Sessions, CEO of Sessions Lending Group, who brings financial expertise and community empowerment through innovative lending tools. And then we have Kim Williams. She is the chair of the board for the Greater Dayton Realtors and past president, representing decades of advocacy for Black homeownership and wealth building. All right, so that's our panel for tonight. And tonight we will explore how zoning reform is progressing in Dayton and how builders and developers can support through better zoning alignment and how we can collaborate to make a stronger Dayton. So we will go ahead and start our panel discussion. Let me get to our first question. And our first question will be to Kamo. But before I ask you your question, Kamo, I would like to just say just give a brief bio on you. I spoke a little bit about it, but I think what you do is very important. And so, Kamo Alcantara is a futurist founder and freedom architect, building sovereign systems for historically excluded communities. Through ventures like ModFab, Trap House, and All Cap Studios, he transforms modular construction, entrepreneurship, and innovative into weapons for economic liberation. So he doesn't ask for inclusion, he builds ownership. So my question to you, explain how modular homes work, and could modular units fill vacant lots or replace abandoned properties as part of neighborhood redevelopment strategies?
That's a long question. Yes, absolutely. So I got to this business prior. I started dealing with market application. We were working on redeveloping existing homes with the same issue, which was to take back control of our community. Being a futurist, being a technologist, being somebody who So typical on-site building takes about 9 to 12 months. There's a lot of projects happening today right now. We see a lot of delays like in Wolf Creek. Whereas modular can be as quick as 30 days. If we have all the material on hand and we have the labor schedule, it can be very quick in enough time.
So, with this question, it's a very broad question, and I don't want to get into zoning too much, but to answer that specifically, I mean, it's really about understanding what we do have in our zoning code and those barriers that limit, because for me, zoning isn't about no, it's about let's figure this out to get to yes, so that we can work with modular buildings and we can figure out how to do that. So it's about communicating with the various partners that we have. If that's the building officials, having a relationship with them so that we can understand what the building requirements are for different structures. We have all kinds of different housing in the communities, but understanding what we have, understanding how to compassionately enforce our codes so that we eliminate as many nuisance properties as we have so we can get pride back into our communities. And from that, we can show investment, we can spur private investment into the properties. But then we can also, from understanding what we have, we can work with our regional partners, and that's what the township is doing, to identify where we have land that we can build, and where we can build affordable housing with our partners at the land bank to get, we can bring down some of these properties that need to come down to eliminate those nuisances, build the pride back so that we invest in the community privately, but we also have to identify the opportunities for funding and helping folks receive funds to build houses. A new built house costs about $250,000 minimum for about 1,200 square feet just to build it for the developer. Land Bank, County Clerk, other partners in the community have programs to bring that cost down to the homeowner to around $170,000, which still sounds crazy, but that's what like affordability kind of sounds like for new builds. So understanding that, working with our partners to identify those properties. Through the nuisances, and specifically for Harrison Township, we've assembled quite a bit of properties. Township owns those properties. We've marketed that to Land Bank, the County Court, to others. Habitat for Humanity also for renovations, but we're working with those to, again, get these properties up to par so they meet the building codes, and we can get folks in there for a reasonable price. Also, it's a long-range plan, it's a long-range process, but it has to be driven by the community. So you have to have your neighborhood groups. It's the boots on the ground that really start these the nuisances all the way through. But through that whole process, essentially, we again identify where we have opportunities. One more point is accessory dwelling units. I think is an extremely important tool. The city of Dayton has done well with this and implementing it into their zoning. We are currently kind of reactionary to that. So accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, are a secondary dwelling on a property. So a lot of zoning, so to geek out on zoning a little bit, single-family residential is one dwelling per parcel. Accessory dwelling units allow 2 or possibly more, depending on the setup. Again, back to building codes. So accessory dwelling units are cheap. They could be 800 square feet. That's what our minimum square footage is. So again, identifying those barriers, identifying what we can bring in, modular type of construction, pre-manufactured new construction as well. There's a lot of different ways to bring down the cost of the housing, working with those partners, identifying those programs, going after and just to backtrack just a little bit how it starts from the leadership, the communities, identifying the need for the housing, understanding what you have, so that you can go out and market it and then bring it back up to par.
Okay, thank you. The question in regards to that is, does the city of Harrison Township work with the city of Dayton and Trotwood in regards to zoning initiatives or to collaborate in any way?
The answer is yes. It's difficult to do at the zoning level, honestly, but yeah, we absolutely coordinate. I think there's more of that collaboration, especially again through the building codes as well. So yeah, we're trying to get more streamlined, get our codes in alignment with one another, so that we can open up these properties for affordable housing.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Thank
Now,
you.
our question, meet Khalid Joshua Sr., CEO of Integrity and Trust Builders, who brings over 25 years of extensive experience in civil engineering and holds multiple certifications in carpentry and construction. Beside him, you'll see his beautiful wife, Dana Joshua, CFO and licensed real estate agent with over 20 years of experience in the financial industry, specializing in lending, teaching financial integrity, communications, and negotiating skills. Together, they have built a strong reputation for integrity, exceptional communication, and commitment to excellence across Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. Our question to you is, how can zoning be adjusted to encourage affordable housing development without discouraging developers?
You want to start that? Okay. So how can zoning be adjusted?
How can zoning be adjusted to encourage affordable housing? So we know that there are processes in place. What works for you as builders? You're out there and you know what works. You have probably worked with Harrison and Trotwood and all of
Trotwood,
our,
Dayton,
yeah,
yes.
you've worked with all of them. So
Yes.
what is it that you're seeing that encourages you or discourages you in regards to building?
Okay, so we're very encouraged, and one of our initiatives that's been spoken of already is we are really looking forward to building. There's a epidemic going on, and I think Kimo had mentioned that the first time buyers, we have a lot of our youth, we have 4 adult children, they're in their 20s, early 30s. It's becoming more and more challenging for them to find an affordable home. And now they're competing with generations before them, baby boomers and now Gen X that have the resources. So they're a lot of times X'd out. So one of our goals specifically in the city of Dayton is to build first-time buyer homes, those small 2 to 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, etc., around the price point that we've mentioned already, about $200,000 or so. So one of the main challenges, we built in Inglewood, we practiced on ourselves, he built our own home for us, and Kimo, it only took 6 months, okay? Listen,
I know you was going
when you said that, his eye twitched a little bit. He was like, we do it in about 6 to 8. And we're, like he said, traditional builders. But one of our main challenges that we are coming across when it comes to zoning in the city that we've dealt with is really, and I'm sorry, but the lack of a streamlined process when it comes to applying. We've had, in a lot of this, we're small builders, we do a lot ourselves. So I want to share all of our business, but we will purchase the land ourselves. We've got financing and relationships in place, etc. But it has taken, in one of our projects, honestly, months with the city to move forward from dividing the land, in getting to the point of actually being able to construct those homes. So a streamlined process would really benefit us, where we know you're coming in, you apply. We've built in Inglewood, we've had projects in suburban areas, and the process was a lot easier. It was more streamlined, and the communication was a bit better. If we just have to be honest, when it comes to us getting to the point of, and also having maybe one point of contact, within the city to build. We had applied, this project's a little large, we're building 5 homes at a time, and the project kind of took, we've had other builds while we're still in the process of trying to get this project moved on. So you have a group of, I still like to say we're young, we're in our 40s, but look, I like to still say we're young, and we want to invest in the community, but it is making it very challenging for us to do so with the processes, the way that they are, and some updated systems, I would say. Yeah, we want to improve the ability. We were still having to hand carry things in, and that whole piece. So I hope that answered that for you, but that would really be beneficial.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have anything to add, or?
Did you want to add? He gotta go to his notes.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about.
You have something to say?
Going to it officially, like multiple
Yes.
layers.
Yes.
And it's also not just the building, it's
Yes.
the delays.
The delays.
So what
Yes.
we heard you say is that, this maybe streamlining the process to
Yes.
make things go a little more smoothly.
Yes.
And, maybe the response time
Yes.
in regards to when we reach out.
Honestly, I had one other piece. I'm sorry. Also, I'm sorry, but as we were just talking, also within the teams, within the different departments, we find the challenge of I mentioned already the streamlining. So one department doesn't know what the other department is doing. And that just has become a challenge of, okay, the electric's approved. And then we actually submitted 2 plans of the same house. One was approved, one wasn't. They're the same exact model. So just clearing the confusion. And someone said earlier already that once it's a learning process for us as well. So we know what to do next time going forward. But for those coming behind us, if we could streamline this, it would encourage more builders to want to build in the community. So,
You can't go beyond.
no.
Okay, thank you. All right. Then we will go on to the city of Dayton, and I'm sure Tony is going to answer the question. Tony representing Dayton, where he has worked for 20 years. He has degrees in city planning from Miami University and Clemson University. Currently, the planning division is managing an array of major housing improvement projects as well as embarking on a zoning reform effort called Adapt Dayton. So the question is, to you, Tony, the city of Dayton has been leading a zoning reform process designed to streamline processes, modernize land use rules, and make them more responsive to current community needs. From your perspective, how is that reform working so far, and what steps could be made for even more housing-friendly developers and residents?
Sure. And Tracy, thanks for inviting me to be on this panel. I really appreciate it. And Dr. Forward for having us. Those are great answers you guys just gave. And I'm certainly aware, if you were talking about the city of Dayton, maybe you were, maybe you weren't. But if you were, we are aware there is room for improvement. You can just say no. And in recognition of the utility of modular housing, I certainly never give a blanket no to prevent modular, no doubt about it. In fact, we have some at First and Patterson and some going now, so we're open-minded. I think that's a good transition to an answer, which is that we are in the early stage of a zoning reform effort called Adapt Dayton. What we've done so far is meet with our peer Ohio cities to talk about where they've been in recent zoning reform efforts, because this is the big thing in planning, right? Hey, planning came about in a whole different time period, and it was all about growth control. It was all about how to keep things from getting too dense, how to prevent too much housing. And these are the rules that our profession has lived by for decades and decades and decades. And so we recognize with our peer Ohio cities that we need to rethink planning and zoning. So we've met with the city of Cincinnati, city of Springfield, city of Toledo, city of Columbus, and a few others to talk about their recent experience and what they're talking about from a zoning reform standpoint. I think from a process standpoint, speaking exactly to the question and the answer that was just before mine, I think what we've seen is an appreciation for staff being able to use their discretion and their logic and approve things without sending it on some prolonged public board process with a probably predefined answer in the first place. We have awesome staff. We have our zoning administrator is here tonight, who is perfectly capable of using her judgment and discretion, not causing things to go on some prolonged board approval process. That's one example from a process standpoint. I think zoning is a tool, and zoning has always been an imperfect tool, right? It's a blunt tool. but it's oftentimes the best tool a city has to go towards its destiny, whatever that chosen destiny is, as a group of people. We find that flexibility is important in reconsidering zoning. So, yeah, we have all this single family zoning, but could it allow duplexes by right? Could it allow the accessory dwelling unit behind you? Is it the end of the world to allow attached single family townhomes in a single family? Is there a way to consider small apartment buildings in some single family zoning areas? These are things that I think planning professionals starting to come to terms with, that we came so far to one side of the spectrum, which was protection and defense and preventing. And today we're thinking, how can we facilitate investment? And the investments occurring that you spoke of, Dana, are things that we should be embracing, of course, as well as embracing what Kamo spoke of, which is, a different material, different approach, modular in this case. And I always say we're open-minded to the degree that we can be. And sometimes we're stuck with antiquated processes, stuck with a zoning code that wasn't created for 2025. Our current zoning code was written in 2006, which our zoning code isn't even that old. But that was a whole different time. Nobody was talking about housing shortage and the need to encourage all this investment and growth. So things have changed a lot, and I think, to wrap up my answer, I would say that we're going towards more flexibility, use of judgment, discretion, just to be less rigid.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
And you mentioned you have a new zoning person here.
Oh, Kirsten French, our zoning administrator, is in the crowd. And my other planners on my staff are here as well. Yeah, Cameron and Jeff are here. They're just here to cheer me on.
Would you like to come introduce yourself? Okay.
Yeah,
Yes, it is.
Exactly.
Still waiting.
Just saying that, yeah.
Yeah.
So I promised her I wasn't going to even say her name. She said, "Don't say her name." And she jumped up and started talking. She was all about that. She was just waiting to give that answer. But now she knew exactly what she was talking about. Now I'm done.
All right. Now we are going to go into the living world. We have Daniel DJ Sessions, who's a dynamic entrepreneur, educator, and financial service leader with over 2 decades of experience spanning mortgage lending, insurance, and commercial finance. As CEO of Sessions Lending Group, LLC, DJ brings a wealth of industry knowledge and passion for empowering communities through financial literacy. And so our question to you, DJ is also on the Greater Dayton Realtors Board as well, and has been a leader with the Realtors for a while as well. Let's see, your question is, what financing tools or loan programs could better support buyers and developers working in neighborhoods where zoning or property conditions create lending challenges?
Thank you. Wow, that was good. That guy sounds pretty cool, right? And we gotta loosen up in here a little bit, man. I'm so nervous up here. I don't know what the heck is going on. I'm trying to. You did. Yes, and I want to just say yes. Thank you again for inviting me, and yes, thank you for that softball photo or question because there was a lot of programs. In fact, Kamo and I had a conversation beforehand. Before this, I wanted to make sure I had a lending product for his product because yes, the need is huge, and so I'll answer the question a couple ways on the investor side, right? So if you're an investor out there with a little bit of capital, right, you can definitely, there's plenty of programs to revitalize communities, right? You can take it house by house, block by block. And then on the buyer side, and this is something I've been encouraging for years, is utilizing all of the renovation products, right? You've got 203K, which is on the FHA side for someone who may be a little credit challenged. And then you have all of the conventional products. And we're talking, you can literally take a house all the way down to the foundation and could build it right back up, all included in the loan. And the buyer only still has to come up with their down payment, right? Whether it's FHA, 3.5%, or if it's for conventional, 5%. And then for the investors, 25%. So there's lots of programs. They're just actually being underutilized. And so I really believe that we just got to be very strategic and not only get the word out, but actually doing the work. And I think that's what Greater Dayton Realtors, we do that. We do a great job of that and getting the word out. So there's a lot of progress.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, DJ. All right, who we have next is Madam Kim M. Williams. Kim Monique Williams. She is a real estate professional with over 30 years experience in the Dayton housing market. Currently, Kim is the chairperson of the board and past president of the Greater Dayton Realtors Association, whose focus is increasing the home ownership rate in the Black community through education, advocacy, and service. Most importantly, Greater Dayton Realtors Association collaborates with various agencies, financial institutions, and nonprofits to promote the mission of building wealth in the Black and other communities of color, thereby educating families on how to increase generational wealth through real estate. Kim also serves as the secretary of the Greater Dayton Realtors Foundation, and I would be remiss if I did not at this moment ask all of the Greater Dayton Realtors members in the room to please stand. All right. Give them a round of applause. Okay, Kim. The question I ask of you is how do we pursue housing growth? How do we ensure revitalization and ensure it doesn't lead to displacement? And what role can GDRA or Greater Dayton Realtors play in balancing these priorities?
Good evening, Madam Tracy. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Dr. Ford, for having me, and thank you for having me here. I think everybody has already answered my question, so here we go. Nice try. Yeah. So our focus is on housing. We have noticed that since COVID, a lot of the corporate rental companies have come in and purchased a great deal of our housing, especially the affordable housing that we thought that we could buy and revitalize and put back into the community, right? So since COVID, home ownership prices have increased, and a lot of people have thought that they couldn't afford it, that, price them out of the market, and then these rental companies come in and they buy the housing. Rents have gone up, but it's made a lot of money for the investors, right? So we know that home ownership is the key to building wealth. Now, whether that has to be owner-occupant homes, or other types of housing. I mean, we've already had some great examples here, the container homes, the EDUs, and all that. So there are so many different types of housing that we can pursue, but we really need to get it into the minds of people that they can afford to buy. They can afford, or put it like this, they can become homeowners. We have to dispel the myths that a lot of times, I was a loan officer also, and the conversation went around credit, right? And people think once they've had bad credit, they always have bad credit, they can never get themselves out, they'll never be in a position to buy. Or the myth is, my family never owned. I don't have any examples of people owning homes in my family, so I probably won't be able to buy a house either. And so we really need to, with GDRA, what we could do is be the bridging that gap between the desire and then helping people to actually see how they can become homeowners. We do work with agencies. We have credit counseling agencies that we work with. With the lenders, we work really closely with the lenders. We have a great group of lenders that are friends at GDRA. So we know that we can send a potential buyer to a particular lender that has these programs, and they will help nurture them, help them get through the process. Because I know that sometimes, well, a lot of times is, we really have to hold people's hands to get them through. Because if you say you can become a homeowner and this is what you have to do and see you later, they won't do it. They won't do it. So GDRA has to take the role of education, information. We have to provide that leadership and create these partnerships with builders and the zoning department and the lenders, and bring everybody together into the communities and then share with the communities, because they need to know what's available to them, not after the fact, but before, so that people can have ownership and pride in the communities that they live in. If we take examples or take a project and say, this is what we want to do here, without any community or resident buy-in, then that's just not the way to do it. So we really can help bridge the gap of helping existing homeowners have a role in the development of the communities that they live in. A lot of people live in the community, they've lived there for years, they have family members that are coming up now and are ready to become homeowners. And they may want to stay in those communities, or they may want to, venture out in other communities, but we need to really be there to help them through this process. And I think that's the role that we can play at GDRA.
Thank you, Madam Kim. All right, at this time, I would like to open it up for questions to the audience. If you have a question, I'm going to ask that you please come up and just have a seat up here, and then that way you can stand up here and ask the question to the panel. We have, of course, our modular guy. We have our city of Dayton, our Harrison Township, and our new dealers, and a loan officer, and a Greater Dayton Realtor. So there are a variety of questions that are open to be asked. So who's first? Come on up. If you have questions. Just have a seat there, and then you can come up here and ask your questions. We have Mr. Alfred. You come on up first.
Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you. Assuming everybody can hear me. I guess I'll stand and face the audience. My question is my first question is for Chad. How often are zoning regulations reviewed? Who reviews them? And what role does the public, or what access does the public have in their review process?
Was it Tony or Chad?
I'm sorry, Tony.
He did.
Looking at you. Nobody wants to listen.
That's okay. No problem. But I was happy to answer the question because I have an answer for it. So we review our zoning code, the actual text of our zoning code. We update it about every year, 1 to 2 years. We update our zoning code. So those one in 2000. Our current code was adopted in 2006. We've updated it, I think, 10 to 15 times. It's not a comprehensive review. It's things that come along, hey, somebody suggests you ought to consider this, or there's an emerging best practice in the planning profession. Let's obviously incorporate that into our zoning code. or we see what other cities are doing and we will want to incorporate best practices. This one that I spoke of, this particular review called Adapt Dayton, is going to take two years, maybe more even. It's our first comprehensive review of our zoning code and zoning map since 2006. And the zoning map is an important part of that, right? We talk about regulations, but, you know, in the city of Dayton, you know, we drew up a zoning map in 2006, and, you know, this will be really our first time thinking, did we get it right? Because I think there's an awful lot of strictly single-family zoning in the city of Dayton. I think there's a lot of industrially zoned land in the city of Dayton. And so this will be our first time really comprehensively looking at our zoning map. But we do update our zoning code every year, maybe a year and a half, something like that, year, 2 years. That's how often. And it goes through a public process. It goes to our plan board, our city plan board, and our city commission, which are both public processes. Before that, it goes to all of our land use boards, which are, you know, sub areas within the city of Dayton, and we advertise, of course, as the city has to for a public meeting and public hearing. It's hard to get interest in a citywide zoning change, right? If I'm changing something in this, our zoning code's 500 pages. If I'm changing something in there, as much as I want people to, because usually I'd love to get support for some of these changes, I really struggle to get people to be interested in a change to our 500-page zoning text. But were that to change, I'd love it. So that's the process, and that's about where we're at with engagement. We go through our typical process that we go through for zoning changes and amendment.
Thanks, son.
Can I add? Oh, just quick, real quick.
Let's see.
Yeah, so Tony was like definitely spot on. But what I'd like to bring up is that zoning is continuously kind of looked at, modified. Harrison Township just recently did a rezoning study for one of the last areas of the plan, back to the map, that the code didn't align to the strategic vision for Harrison Township, which comes from the township, the community leadership at the high level. I talked about the boots on the ground, the local leaders, but it's also about the top leadership. They had a vision from the strategic plan to look at housing and to go through that, and it's a multi-year process just for those documents that can then help inform zoning. So Harrison Township, we have a strategic plan that identifies housing adjustments, things like that. We've now gone through and implemented a housing study that's just coming out through Bloom Community Partners. Liz Bloom, she was at the city of Dayton, city of Cincinnati, a housing expert. She's prepared that helps us understand what we have, what our demographics are within our community and also the region. And then we are also going to, with that information, going to adjust our code, and it's really about the uses. So instead of single-family residential being only for single-family, one dwelling, we're going to open it up to two-family and multifamily. We're going to open it up to allow more flexibility within the housing code so that we can meet the current demands because it is antiquated. And again, that takes like a year or 2 years to go through the zoning process. The zoning study that we did do, that was very focused and just for 2 specific areas, we had a public engagement process for that. It included several meetings, included a survey, and it included feedback on our draft plan. So that's kind of, from a planning perspective, just having the ability to that is limiting, but just going out and working with the community leaders locally at the small level is honestly the best way to do it, because you get to that incremental updates of the plan.
Do you have any kind of say in the process or the planning or the changing of how you process the zoning?
Absolutely. For this rezoning study that we did, it was an office service industrial district, OSI 1. We split it up into OSI 2 for the industrial corridor areas, but we also established R4 zoning, which was our most flexible residential zoning. So we provided that. We changed industrial zoning to residential because of the makeup, because of what the community was telling us.
Thank you. Michael, come on up. Michael, Chase.
I just had a question for Chad and Tony. know, well, kind of more so for you, Chad, you have mentioned a lot of private funding a few times when you're speaking about some of the things that you're looking to do with Harrison Township. With this private funding, like how is it being considered that, like the pool of private investors like reflects the demographic of the people that actually live in the township or the city?
It really starts with properties that are problems. They don't conform to our zoning. Landowner purchased these properties, and he's from Springfield, and he purchased these properties in Harrison Township because of his demographics, which are matched to the community. And he didn't know what to do with the properties. So he asked, he came to us, what can I do with these properties? And the conversation was, this needs to be redeveloped. The uses do not match. Auto shop does not match. He's coming back with development for 48 housing units. He's going to demolish 3 houses and an old agricultural type of building. He's going to build 48 apartments with a community center and a retail outlot. That's going to be market rate housing, and it's going to be an awesome turnaround on North Dixie. And it really comes from having those conversations, working with folks, but being flexible with our zoning codes so that we can make those decisions on the fly, so that we can actually get real investment and real improvement. Tony?
I think that the most important thing that the city of Dayton can do is create an environment that induces investment that does reflect the demographics of the community in which that person is investing. The city isn't the market, but the city can help facilitate investment by improving rates of way, making streets safer, like demolishing nuisances. So us not being the market, I think the best that we can do is create an environment for inducing such.
Thank you. Roberts, you have a question?
Yes, my question is either city or the township. I've had 3 meetings in 2 weeks around housing, and issues come up regarding abandoned businesses, especially corporate businesses. If you drive up here, there's one on Broadway and Riverside, a chicken joint. There's one over here. So the question is, what state or local ordinance has to be passed for us to get a handle on abandoned corporation or corporate business? You understand the question? How do we get a handle? Is it a city ordinance? Do we have to get the legislature pass something that says, we get a handle on them quicker?
So I think the House Bill 315, which passed in April, it definitely allows the township, we're not home rule, we were very limited in what we can enforce from a code enforcement perspective. So some of these abandoned properties, things like that, the owners are out of state. It's these kind of predatory investment, people are gobbling up properties and somehow, making a return on investment. But specifically for the commercial properties, well, we do have some predatory slumlords essentially that are taking advantage. So, but back to the commercial properties, it's about code enforcement, holding those landowners accountable so that they can improve the properties to our standards. And if they're not going to do that, then we can fine them. Now that House Bill 315 is done, and that will go through the municipal court, whereas previously it went through the criminal court. So these fees are going to add up very quickly that the owner is going to have to respond. And then it's a compassion code enforcement also. It's not just about...
I guess what I'm trying to go at, because we've known for years that we have absentee landlords, people live out of state. The question I'm asking is, what can the state or the city do to find these owners, identify them, so they can tear down or repair those businesses? Because while we're knowing this, Gettysburg and Salem and other Broadway are just abandoned.
Yep. So obviously, when we meet with property owners, we try to let them know of all the different ideas that we have for how this property can be improved, and what we see it happening as an improvement for the community and for those uses. Other than that, it's difficult. But now that House Bill 315 is passed, we now really have the ammunition, especially at the township level. I can't speak for the city of Dayton, but to really find folks, and it's really about ownership and making them accountable for what they have. And if they have issues, then let's talk about that and work through the programs and find ways that we can help get these properties up to par, and so we get pride back. Those neighboring properties.
Okay, so I have two questions. I'm going to come back to my questions because these two ladies right here want to ask a question, so you can come on up.
Hello, mine is for Tony. It's a zoning question. Just for educational purposes, can you tell us what the difference is for zoning for the city and zoning for the county? How do they correlate together, and what's the difference?
Yeah, I think there's often confusion. I think this is what you're trying to get to the bottom of, and that is a field at the county that says zoning. This is really confusing, right? Is called commercial or residential or whatever for tax purposes. That's the county's main function. Our zoning determines it's really supposed to determine what could go there in the future, right? And what's legal there now. The two very rarely talk to one another, and it's very confusing. I'm glad you said this, because we get the question often. Says, "Hey, what do you mean I can't build a retail shop here?" The county says I'm zoned commercial, but it's zoned residential by the city of Dayton. So they are calling things what they were at that point as what they should be taxed as, and we are zoning land for a future vision. Maybe there's I'd love for them to use a different name, for example, in that county field, because it's a question that I get from time to time, and I have to clear it out. So I appreciate your service in asking the question.
Thank you. Did that answer your question?
Okay. So I had two questions, one for Daniel and one for Kimo. So for Daniel, for emerging builders and real estate investors, what are the key financial benchmarks or documentation lenders look for to qualify for construction or rehab funding?
Great question. So when I first developed the entity, so go to the Ohio Secretary of State, name of the business, get your EIN, get an operating agreement together. If it's just you yourself, then it's just you. If it's multiple people, make sure you have that agreement in place. Make sure your capital is in place, whether you're using the investment funds, retirement money, but you got to have some form of skin in the game, right? Of course, we're going to look at credit. That's a factor. It's not a major factor, but the most important part is the liquidity. And then you're going to have a really good either architect or someone who knows what they're doing in that process.
Knows the zoning laws, right?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for answering that. And then for Kamo, how does the modular construction compare in cost to traditional builds, especially for residential or small multi-family projects? I know you spoke about the actual timeline, but what about the actual cost and difference to the traditional?
So a lot of people think that because we use containers, that it's somehow cheaper to build in nothing built from the tree, because they're still using all the same building material. It's just a metal box. And so what makes it cheaper is the fact that it's able to be done in parallel to delays, like they were speaking about delays. The building process is one thing. If you can't build it, you depend on all the zoning, permit, restrictions, then that's where the savings come. If you're able to build parallel to those things happening, and you're not having to do it in consecutive order, there's a savings there, and then also economy of scale. So because we're doing a very particular design, and that design is being repeated over and over, we're able to get the cost down because we can buy more material at once, 400 units or 500 units. So we're negotiating the material cost, where 10 cents for 10,000 pieces of drywall is really no difference. And if you have those kind of savings across the board, because you're able to negotiate because of the volume that you're acquiring at, those bring the cost down as well.
Makes sense. I was going to ask about you said drywall installation. I was going to ask how does that look, but it seems like it's pretty much the same. The only thing is the outer difference in dropping off. Okay.
Just a question, have you had challenges with getting the My Bad homes built. And tell us a little bit about the foundation, if you have a foundation, concrete foundation, or if you don't, do it.
So the challenges have really come more so from it being newer in this region. When you go to the coastal regions, this is not new, a new approach. It's been around since the mid-90s. It came out in the mid-90s in Europe, and it came to the States in the early 2000s. So it's pretty ubiquitous at this point. But the biggest challenges also come from the mindset piece. So for Tony and Chad, a lot of people in the community believe that cities, municipalities will say no, and also a lot of municipality employees or staff believe that they have the jurisdiction when it comes to a modular builder. But in 90% of the jurisdiction lies with the state. The state is administrating the building code, and so the cities respond in kind, and they have restrictions around like size. You have minimum square footages. In Trotwood, where our fabrication facility is, for example, 50% of the exterior facade has to be brick or stone. So we would have to then adapt our design where 50% of the outside looks like solid what they're doing right there in Olive Oak, where that isn't an actual, they aren't stacking real stones. When it comes to municipality, but as far as the actual using containers, once the state says yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so we're going to wrap up at 6:45. So 7:45. I'm sorry. I actually have three questions. One, I want to be very quick, and that is, what are the top two barriers of enforcing laws that are already on the books to keeping properties were maintained properly within our neighborhoods? What are the top two barriers? Why the top two barriers that causes the city, more specifically the city, not to be able to enforce the laws that are currently on the books with property owners?
Is that me?
Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Forward. Appreciate it. I would say, and I don't work in enforcement, but what I do know is the biggest challenge is the ability to find people that are deliberately impossible to find. If you've abandoned a house, you're probably part of an LLC in Sacramento or something like that.
I'm sorry. Not the ones that are abandoned, but the ones that are currently, people are currently living in those homes.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
So painting, siding, cars on the street, or nuisance, right? That's what I'm talking about.
Right. It is a extensive process if the property owner does not wish to voluntarily comply with such. I think we have some new tools in place that are designed to encourage a quick reaction, and that's I think it proved very effective. I don't think we had proper enforcement mechanisms until very recently. I think that's going to prove to be beneficial in terms of how we penalize those who are choosing to not comply with our regulations. So that has historically been the problem, so I'm having the right penalties for such.
Okay. ARPA dollars. It's either true or false. Someone stopped me today when I was at the Democracy Summit. I told them to come here. I don't see them in here today, but I said, why don't you come here to ask a question? Since I don't see them, I want to ask the question. True or false? The ARPA dollars, 138 million ARPA dollars that the city of Dayton received. Is it true that the city of Dayton is going to be building two $500,000 houses or something like that in Wright Dunbar area off of the money?
So there
I think that's what the question was.
Yeah, the question was probably about those homes in Wolf Creek, the aforementioned homes in Wolf Creek, I think, by Camo. The amount of subsidy there was two different projects. One is with County Corp. That will ultimately be 5 homes, and they received $1.5 million to even make those homes practical. The other one was, I believe, $400,000 for the new home with the accessory dwelling unit puts us the 2 units on Second Street.
I think that's what it is. Something about Second Street. Yes.
Yeah.
So can you explain that to me? Because I wasn't unaware of that.
Sure. So we used ARPA dollars to basically fill the gap between the cost to build the house and the accessory dwelling unit, of course, the garage, and what that builder, expected to receive with a small developer fee, because or else why would a developer even participate? Unless they just like doing charity. But it's not. Nobody's getting rich off of it. And in fact, we only had 2 responses to a very public request for proposals for people that want to build houses. It's hard to build new houses, and it's so expensive. It sounds crazy, but that's what we had to do to induce investment.
So, if I'm understanding you correctly, there is homes, or 2 homes or something like that, that's going to be built, $500,000 homes, that the ARPA dollars help to fund, subsidize these 2 particular properties, but it was within the guidelines, I assume, of the ARPA dollar funding model that you all opened up to the general public. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the amount is $400,000 for two units, but that is one house with an accessory dwelling, which very well could be either rented out or have a relative living in it. So it's 2 separate units, probably one property, $400,000. And yes, you're very right, Dr. Forward. It was a public RFP process, and I would have loved to have had 10 different proposals to choose from, and we didn't. It's expensive to build a house.
Okay, then my last question is if the new zoning administrator could come up and answer this last question.
Sorry, Kirsten. I know. She's probably sitting back there thinking what I should be saying. Here you go, Kirsten. You want us to know something? I'll just take you by the seat. You got it. Let's give me a sit where she was sitting.
Right now, I walked up for some reason. I don't know why.
So my question to you is, what is the backlog of citizens and their businesses that want to be able to have some zoning, or that need zoning to approve projects? Why is there a backlog in the zoning department for that? But I'll talk to you offline about more specifically what I'm talking about. But I just want to understand in general, what are some of the dynamics that causes there to be a backlog? But I'll talk to you one-on-one about.
No, I'm happy to talk very publicly about it. It's a matter of personnel, and it's a matter of technology. And these are things we're working on improving right now, every day. So we are hiring a few new people in zoning because there is no zoning department. There's just 2 people who work in zoning. We work alongside the building department, and I think that is sometimes where a lot of the frustration is coming from, and they have lacked personnel for a long time and have had an extremely antiquated process. We're still on paper reviewing, so if that highlights for you that there are 3 copies of plans that circulate around our offices, and people come to Cubbies to pick them up. It's just not sufficient for the modern age, and we know this. So what we're doing is we are opening up in the first quarter of 2026 a portal for you to submit your applications, and we're going to keep working steadily until all of our permitting process record types are available online for submission. So that's step 1. This really is the answer, because as soon as you're able to do electronic document review, all the departments can see everything at the same time. And paper moves slowly. It's just as simple as you have 3 copies of paper moving to be reviewed by 6 people. So you can see how this right back at the outset is a delay. We don't want delays in projects anymore. We need everybody to see everything at the same time, comment on everything at the same time, see everybody else's comments, coordinate, have a single coordinator who is giving you back your results,
taking in your next set, helping you through. Oh, it sounds like we have an issue with civil engineering. Well, let's go talk. You know, you're going to use me. We're gonna talk together with civil engineering. We're going to fix the problem, and we're going to move on. I seriously think that permitting is going to take about half the time it takes right now, just from that simple change. We need to keep hiring people back because we are not in COVID anymore. So we've been working hard to do that. That's a little bit more difficult in the building department than it is in zoning. People are, for some reason, very fired up and excited to work in planning and zoning. You're not getting people in the private sector coming to go work as plans examiners on the building department side as easily. So we're having to reevaluate how we do things.
What's the time frame of this transition to the
So we are getting our first zoning, like the actual zoning. You want to build a shed, you want to build a fence, you want to